Hello. I got a really good question from a colleague at Grand Pacific Health in Australia about risk status. So as a reminder, risk status is that risk compared to who, kind of contextually anchoring risk. Risk state is risk compared to when, risk compared to another time point of the person's baseline. The question about risk status was, I've heard you, Tony, talk about risk status as being risk in relation to a stated population, but I've also heard you talk about it as risk in relation to others in a particular setting. Either the current one or one being considered. And this is a great question because you're absolutely right. We have talked about it in both ways. In fact, if we look here at, this is our 2016 paper here on the left, and you can see we defined risk status as relative to others in a stated population. And then if you looked over at the current framework, we refer to that as being risk relative to others in a given setting. Now, let me explain this a little bit. When we first published that paper in 2016, there were really only a few hundred people who were using risk formulation in their day-to-day practice. And so we had some experience with it and the ways that it was helpful. But now, of course, there's many thousands of people who have adopted the model, and we've had so many more opportunities to learn the ways in which people are finding it useful, as well as the things that kind of trip people up. And one of the things that I found that was sometimes tripping people up was this word population. Because people started to think in terms of like epidemiology, and they'd say, well, I don't know the risk in this population, so how can I say whether it's higher or lower? And people were kind of getting anxious about that. Some people really liked that, and in fact, our colleagues in Gold Coast Health, who have been, amazing collaborators, really almost co-developers of this model with us, argue strongly that that's very, very helpful for them to be able to talk in terms of a population, so that you can say, well, this young person is at higher risk than other 16-year-olds in the general population, but is at similar risk to other people treated in our service. So in that case, it really is a population of young people who are teenagers in schools. That's a population. But we also have found people finding it very useful to talk about the setting. So, for example, if you're in a setting where almost everybody has a great degree of risk, for example, in an inpatient service. So if I said to you, this person has higher risk status than anybody that we've admitted to our inpatient service in the last 3 months. Okay, that tells me something. It's not necessarily a population, it's our setting. And everybody there in the setting would really understand, knows the people, and that would give them a sense. The main point is that it depends upon the purpose and what you're trying to communicate. We've shared about this in another video that we can link you to, but it's always about the purpose, and why you're selecting the risk status that you're selecting is more important than what. Because this is really designed to be an engagement and communication tool so that we can talk about risk amongst the team, with the person themselves and friends and family that they involve, as well as in the medical record. So the key is, what are you needing to communicate, and you can choose based on that. So right now we most commonly hear people talking about it in relation to a setting, because we found that people can kind of wrap their minds around that a little bit better than a population. But it's still, totally commonly used and valuable and okay to talk about in relation to a population. So it depends upon what you're trying to communicate. Well, I hope that's been useful, and thanks to Nikki for the great question, and we'll see you soon.